We're going to kick off now because it's getting quite late. We're going to kick off with our next keynote discussion. It's all about the value of branding. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Will Ford from LaunchBloom, who's going to moderate this wonderful next session. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
You ready? All right, everyone, if you guys wouldn't mind, just quiet down a little bit. Thank you. Hi, guys. My name is Will Ford, and I am the president and co-founder of LaunchBloom. We are a crowdfunding agency based out of San Diego, California. And I've come all the way out here to attend this conference. Before I get started, I got to tell you guys that Madrid is one of the coolest cities. I love coming here each and every year. And today we're going to talk about branding. A big part of what we do at LaunchBloom is I work with entrepreneurs all over the world. We have a ton of clients right here in Europe, which is why I come out here so often. And what we do is we actually help them take their consumer products to market through crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter, like Indiegogo. And the way we do this is we spend usually about 2 to 3 months helping them understand their audiences, helping them validate demand before we go into the crowdfunding. And a big part of getting started is helping them establish their brands. Before I dive in too much deeper, I do want to take a minute and I want to introduce our main speaker, Andy Stallman. You guys may know him as Mr. Branding. He's one of the world's top branding experts. He has well over 20 years experience in the branding industry. He's also a well-known author. Andy, he's published 2 books. One of his most famous books is called Brand Off On. It's been a bestseller on Amazon for the last 4 years. And he's also, which is actually really impressive, your blog. He's got one of the biggest blogs in the world when it comes to branding. He's had over 2 million views, and it's one of the most popular in Europe. With that said, I want to introduce Andy Stallman. All right.
Amazing presentation.
Yeah.
Now we can go.
All right. Anyway, guys, yeah, before we get started, you know, today's my first time actually meeting Andy in person. And this morning he was presenting at another conference up in Bilbao. So we're lucky he made it here without too many delays. And they do call Andy Mr. Branding. And so I think a great way to kick it off is, Andy, why do they call you Mr. Branding?
That's a very good question. Hola Madrid, hola todos, good morning, good afternoon, almost good night. Thank God so many people left the room, so now we can breathe a little bit. It's so hot in here. Many years ago, back in 2011, I was invited to a conference in Buenos Aires, and I did this kind of conversation with a journalist over the phone. And when I arrived there, she released the interview on a digital platform, and she started like quoting, discussing about brands with Andy Stallman is like discussing brands with Mr. Branding himself. So it was amazing because when we talk about branding and the difference with marketing, if I would have called myself Mr. Branding, that would have been marketing. And being an Argentinian, that would have been a disadvantage at the same time. But if someone else is calling you or recognizing your work and calling you Mr. Branding, then that's pure branding. And that is the very nice thing about it.
So you did not give yourself the name Mr. Branding?
No, it was this fantastic Vanessa Galicia 7 years ago in October of 2011 that called me that way.
And you've been Mr. Branding for the last 7 years?
Yes. And I expect to be for the next 7 as well.
And that right there, guys, is a great example of the power of branding. He didn't give himself that name. That's the work he's done in various verticals, various industries. And because of his reputation and who Andy is, he's now Mr. Branding. I think you're the only person I know out of all the industries I've worked in where you've actually been labeled Mr. Branding.
That is awesome. It's incredible. And when we talked yesterday over the phone with Will is also besides being an extraordinary person, and that is not something simple, because there are lots of great professionals here in the room and here in the South Summit, but being a great professional is not enough. You also need to be a great person, and he is. And in this conversation with Will, he said to me that he started 4 companies in the last decade, major success, but all of them started with some common thread. And that common thread is what?
It's branding. Before I've launched any company, we always take the time necessary to understand what we're going to do, what we're going to create. And the first exercise we attempt is a branding exercise. I've always used a process called the brand equity consumer pyramid. And if you go on Google, there's thousands of articles about that process. I use it because it works. And it kind of brings up my next question for you, which is, why would you recommend that anyone out there looking to start any type of business start with branding? Why do you think it's important?
I think that the critical thing about this is that we are still asking these questions. While every single successful company in the world is based on a strong branding strategy and positioning and development, people are not yet understanding the value of a brand. From time to time, we see these rankings where the brand value of Google is 200,000 millions, or Apple 180,000 millions. So everybody says, oh, branding is important because you added it on the balance sheet, and that's pure profit for the company. Today, big companies are not really understanding brand as a strategic asset for the company. And when we talk about branding, we talk about mainly people. How many companies are really investing on the talent of its people, on keeping them, on nourishing them, on attracting talent from outside, and understanding that the people, the staff, the team, is no longer the brand ambassador, it's the brand itself. People are the brand. And I believe that if at this stage of the 21st century we are still trying to convince anyone about the importance of branding, then something is wrong for those that are not convinced. And that's a massive opportunity for those that are already investing heavily. I'm not saying big amounts, but at least big amounts of time, of talent, of purpose, of values, of dedication to build something that chooses to stand out rather than fitting in, you know?
Oh, yeah. And for me, guys, my experience specifically with branding is consumer product focused. All my previous businesses were consumer facing. And so for me, it's really important that you understand who you are, the direction you're heading in, before you start creating your marketing assets, before you even create a logo.
Yep.
You need to understand the core values of where you're going, your team, your vision, and then from there come the logos, come the graphic design, come the rest of the marketing assets and the videos and all that other fun stuff.
It's interesting because when Steve Jobs was out of Apple for the first time, he decided to launch Next. The first thing he did was fly to New York and sit down with one of the most well-known, best designers of that time. He said to him, I need to build the next brand. And he said, okay, tell me more about the company. No, I have nothing yet. Okay, show me some product. No, there is no product. Okay, show me some material. No, there is nothing. So why shall I start with the brand? The designer asked Steve Jobs. And Steve Jobs answered something like, because the brand will create a perception of trust, of confidence, of something that is being built. Then will come the product, then will come the investors, then will come the marketplace, and so on and so on. But first is the brand. And I believe that in the startup environment, where more or less 8 out of 10 new startups fail, I would say that the main reason is that they are forgetting a key aspect of a new brand or a new product or a new service, that is focusing on how this brand is impacting on people's life, how is evolving people's life or bringing simplicity to people's life in a very complex world, or how is this brand going to affect people's life for better? Once you understand this and you work heavily on this, then comes the financing. Most of my friends that are in this world are more focused on getting the money than building the brand. And maybe it's a discussion for another day, what's more important. Probably both are very important. But if you don't have a brand, and you don't have a team, and you don't have talent, then money is pretty much useless.
It's interesting. I know we haven't had this conversation yet, but I have never raised capital without having done my branding exercise. And that has been probably one of the key aspects to why I've been successful, raising millions of dollars for my previous ventures. And what's so interesting about that right there is that's how I've gotten to where I am today with LaunchBoom. LaunchBoom is the first business I've started without any outside investor capital. I was able to leverage my previous successes and basically back this entire project from day one. And the very first day, we started with the branding exercise, trying to figure out what type of impact we were going to make in this crowdfunding world, how we were going to help entrepreneurs raise millions of dollars launching new products on Kickstarter, on Indiegogo. And the best name that came to mind after doing a lot of discussions, exercises, was LaunchBoom, because that's essentially what we do for all of our clients. We spend about 2 to 3 months. We leverage digital marketing, platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and what we're doing is we're building hyper-focused audiences that want to buy our products before we actually go live. And only when we have a large enough audience that's engaged and ready to buy, we go live. And when we turn these things on, we have huge launches, hence the brand LaunchBoom. And to our earlier conversations, since we've established our business LaunchBoom, which was only 3.5 years ago, 2015, we're now recognized in the world as one of the leaders. So most of our business today comes directly from referral based on the brand.
Yeah. When you have a good reputation, word of mouth play its own game to bring attention to that company or to that product. It's interesting because there is something we haven't mentioned yet, that is relations. Eric Schmidt wrote only a couple of years ago that companies in the near future will be more valued for their relationships than for its tangible assets. And reality is that the intangible of brands is really evolving at an extraordinary speed. Back in 1985, the contribution of the intangibles to the brand value was around 17%. Nowadays, the contribution of intangibles to brand value is above 85%. And we're talking about computers and houses and buildings and headquarters, but we're not talking about these intangibles. And intangibles are really building trust and value for brands. And those values that are really connecting people's needs with the offering your brand is putting on the table or on the marketplace are really making the difference. It's not difficult to understand, but it's difficult to apply, it seems, because if not, most brands would have been more successful than they really are today.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it right
Speechless.
there.
Oh, that was a very good answer.
You know, I've got a lot of questions for you, but I'm most interested to learn of all the branding you've done. And if you guys don't know Andy's background, I mean, he's done a lot. He's done the government sector. He's done branding with airlines. He's done branding with all sorts of businesses, startups to, you know, huge Fortune 1000 companies. So my question for you is, what's your most memorable, what was the most fun branding project you've ever done?
Usually people answer to this kind of question, well, there are two, the last one and the next one.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to answer that. I think that the word fun is a very important word. And when you are developing a very complicated and complex project where you have like 20 or 50 stakeholders involved, and you have a timeline and a budget, and there is a sword, you know, hanging on your head, and and you are leading a team, fun is probably not the first word in my list. But I would say that passion is. And when we talk about passion, I think that the best projects were those where the client understood that we were not vendors or suppliers, we were partners. And when this perspective changes, everything changes. Because instead of making you come to their office and wait for them 1 hour, when you arrive to the office, they are celebrating your arrival. Because you are adding value to the company. I can mention an airline, I can mention a shopping center, I can mention my first project in Spain that was a vinegar that increased sales 500% in the 1 year after the relaunch of the redesign we did. But I would come to this common place, but I had to do it because this is something I really feel and I'm really convinced about it is the companies have inside their structures believers and non-believers on branding. When the believers take command, the projects are extraordinary. When the non-believers take command, the better thing to do is to thank for everything and go home. So everything comes back again to relationships and people. If the client believes, if the client trusts, and if the client understands the change of era we are living in, everything flows. We have a big problem for many years with clients because if you go and you tell them you have to do this because this is based on some criteria and on your brief and on blah, 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 they will doubt at the very beginning. If you're a surgeon and you're going to open, to do something on your heart, no one is going to say, no, instead of cutting here, please cut here. No one is going to say that. But in marketing and in branding, in this creative world, everybody seems to know a lot. So if you're going to hire an expert, trust the expert. If you're going to invest your money and your time and your future in an expert, trust him. And if not, don't hire him. So the best projects are those where people believe and trust in us, for sure.
Well, we're going to have to talk after this, but I have a lot of clients that could use your help.
Okay, fantastic.
Definitely.
We can talk business later.
Absolutely.
Why not?
Absolutely. All right, so you've got a ton of experience, over 20 years. What does the future of branding look like for business owners everywhere? And I know that's a very broad topic.
It's very broad and difficult, but at the same time, it's very simple. I believe that there are two kinds of companies. Those that want to make a forecast of what the future will be, and those that work for building the future. I prefer not to guess what is going to happen. I prefer to work every day on what is going to happen. In fact, in 2014, when I wrote this book, Brand of On, that is pretty much what I see as the branding of the future, it's not only to tell the startups that are really focusing on the digital environment, not to forget the analogic or the physical environment, because digital is a part and physical is another part. So if brands are not including online plus offline, they're going to be out. Yes?
100%, yes.
So that is something important. The second thing is people, people, and people. Companies are people, brands are people, and clients are people. If we don't understand people, we don't understand business. Technology is fantastic. We love innovation. We embrace change, but above all, people. I believe that the world of brands has been divided into two big eras. Eras, you say? Yes? Ages?
That's right.
Yes?
Yeah.
Before the internet and after the internet. And I am pretty sure that this idea of dataism that we are all involved with needs to evolve to a next level where the value of data needs to be shared with the client. If the companies are keeping the data, getting the data, and not sharing the data, that it's not going to be a good future. And also, we need to be very clear on how many companies are using the algorithms to manipulate us. If manipulation continues, then client will say, oh, no more. Hemingway used to say that a good writer has a shit detector. You know, we need to wake up and detect what is shit and what is manipulation. So I think there is a very bright future for brands and branding. I think there is a very interesting soil to develop your vision, because most of the brands, even those that are huge, are not really understanding what's going to happen. And instead of talking about what's going to happen, what they have to do is to build that future. Because the only thing that transforms things is action, not words.
Well said.
Thank you.
I think that's why we get along so well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I agree with everything you just said. A big part with how I've developed my business at LaunchBoom is being an entrepreneur. We work with a lot of other entrepreneurs, not just big business. And all of the entrepreneurs we work with, they always want to know what's going on every step of the way. So when we developed the LaunchBoom platform, we developed it to be an open system. So every single one of our clients, when they come into LaunchBoom, they can understand who their audiences are, the best performing content. We provide a lot of that real-time data because that's exactly what they need. In addition, you made a really good point about the people. When we scaled our company LaunchBoom, we systematized a lot of the processes that we could outsource, but we didn't systematize everything. A big part of how we communicate with our clients, everyone has a dedicated representative on our team that actually cares, manages, and that they communicate with at least on a weekly basis. Sometimes it's bi-weekly, depending upon what phase we're in, because you don't want to lose that human touch point. People want to deal with people.
Yeah.
They don't want to talk to robots.
Yeah. And talking about that, can I ask you to give me an extra minute for asking our audience for a favor?
Yeah.
Yes?
Of course.
So I think since the future we are heading to, everything that can be automatized will be automatized. And everything that can be digitalized will be digitalized. Everything but one thing that is human emotions, human feelings. And I would like to ask this fantastic audience, thank you for being here so late, for a 48-second favor, okay?
Yeah.
So there are many studies that have shown that if you give or receive 8 hugs a day of at least 6 seconds each, that is only 48 seconds a day, your brain generates 3 times more oxytocin than normal. Oxytocin is associated with generosity and trust. And I think that there is no possibility to build great brands in the future if you are not generous and if you don't have trust with your clients and vice versa. So when we talk about brands, we talk about experience. And the only way to live or to feel the experience is to feel it and to live it. So I kindly ask you to stand up 48 seconds only. And I know it's very hot in here, but if we can give and receive 8 hugs of 6 seconds each, then oxytocin will flow immediately.